Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubinstein, the founder and CEO of Retail Resilient. We teach car dealers all over the country how to sell more cars and make more money using social media platforms. Like I said, who says you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Check us out at retailresilient.com or send us a message in the chat bar on the Auto Hub Show.
Hi, it's Barry here with White Glove Performance Group. Thanks for joining the show this morning. Always great content on here, and a big shout out to Ian and Jeff for all the hard work that they put into this show. Just wanted to say really proud of being a sponsor of this show. White Glove Performance Group, what do? We have a cloud-based styling technology called Touchpoint. Touchpoint is used in dealerships all across North America. And the main reason for its popularity is because dealerships can now amp up their team to be calling 50 people an hour. They can leave a personalized voicemail, a custom email as follow-up, all with a click of a mouse. This really speeds up some of the jobs that happen in the dealership, such as cleaning up your recalls, cleaning up lost souls in service, running a private sale, trying to reach out to your database to buy inventory. Obviously, we know that's the way to source it in today's environment. whitegloveperformancegroup.com. My direct is 587-899-6600. Love to have a chat with you about some of the things that we can do. But outside of that, I'm going to turn it back over to the host of the show, and hope everybody enjoys it.
Everyone, I'm John Latka from Automotive Business Solutions, where we help dealerships build more productive and proactive by-appointment sales cultures through our Performance Management Partnership Program. So, if you want to increase your sales volume by 2 to 3 sales per month per salesperson, call our toll-free number, 877-708-8484 for a free consultation.
A couple books, Like I See It, Power Play by Tim Higgins, and the Future of the Automotive Industry. Go ahead, Jeff.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our Facebook and LinkedIn Live viewers, listeners, audience. It's good to have you here. Thank you so much. We have our disclaimer, which is telling everybody the views and opinions expressed on the Auto Hub show are those of our guest speakers, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Auto Hub show or Ian Nethercott or Jeff Polo or any other firm or associated agency, organization, employer, or company. Ian.
The Frickin software show. That's our show today, so let's get into it.
So today we have a great group of guests. And first of all, we have Ryan Nefo. I hope I got that right, Ryan, who's the account manager of Swipe Digital Marketing based out of Southern Ontario. Ryan, can you take a moment to introduce yourself? And thank you for joining us for the first time.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm Ryan. I'm account manager at Swipe Digital Marketing, Inc. We help auto dealers with their digital marketing strategies across Canada. So thank you for having me.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time. We know you're busy. And again, another newbie, pardon the term, is Aaron Brunt, who's the DMS Sales Application Specialist from PBS Systems, of course. So that is the abbreviation company or the acronym company out of Calgary, Alberta, but actually today coming from us from Austin, Texas. Aaron, can you tell us more about yourself and your business? And again, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. So basically, guys, I've secretly been in the automotive industry for well over 20 years now. I've spent a lot of time doing all roles at the dealership, but most recently, I've spent the last 8 years with PBS Systems. We are a dealer management software for car dealerships, and built our platform from the ground up 4 different times to stay true with the industry standards and technology here, and super excited to be with you guys today.
Well, we're super excited to have you here, so thank you. Next, we have someone who is no stranger to the Auto Hub show audience, and that is Gail Rubinstein from Retail Resilient. She needs no introduction, but Gail, say hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gail. Pleasure to meet you. We are
Yeah, we are retail resilient social selling for the car industry. We do everything in regards to social selling, everything.
And of course, she's actually very closely connected to Basset Hounds, it seems.
Yes. You can teach anybody from the old school car business to social sell.
By all means, by all means.
Yeah.
Hey, if we're not social in the car business, boy, we're in big trouble. Then we have also an old friend of the show, not saying he's old, but Troy Glenn from Director of Sales of CDK Global here in Surrey, BC, Canada, which is basically Vancouver far away. Troy, I don't see you.
You don't see me.
There you go.
Oh my gosh,
Sorry,
hey,
I
how
see
you doing? It's okay.
Oh, I know why,
first-
because it's Ian's screen and he disappeared from there. Please go ahead.
First you call me old and then you can't see me. I'm starting to think I'm not much of a friend, Jeff. No, but thanks for having
you got
me
here,
on.
buddy.
Barely. Thanks for having me on. I'm Troy from CDK, as you all have known before. And CDK really, we're like Aaron's company, we're also DMS company, serving all of North America as well. We have been doing so for the better part of 50 years.
Great. My audio isn't as good, so I'm a little bit behind there. Sorry. And then finally, last but not least, the very young Peter Smith, who is a partner in mobile dealer data. And Peter's been on the show before, but we haven't seen him for a while. But Peter, say hi to everybody and tell us more.
Hi, everyone. My name's Peter Smith. I'm with Mobile Dealer Data. We are a data acquisition company for car dealerships that arrives at providing data with no input from staff, which is quite unique, and I'd love to explain more about it throughout the show.
Terrific. Thank you so much for joining us. Ian, take it away.
Well, welcome, first of all. Obviously, it's a show about technology, so we'll be talking a little bit about technology. For those of you who weren't live, we had an interesting video about technology and overload, which I think if you want the link, you can definitely send me an email. It's a pretty funny video. It was done by Xerox Corporation. So the first question I have is, I represent a website company called NabDat. We've become very successful by showing dealers the faults in their website software and how to make it more friendly. Most dealers are clueless about the capability of their software. How can we honestly get dealers to understand their software? And let's start that with, I don't know, maybe we start with Gail.
Well, I think that's a really interesting question because prior to Retail Resilient, I worked at Viato, and that was the question that they asked us all the time was, how do we get car dealers to use Viato software? And now I'm trying to figure out how to get car dealers to use Facebook software. And how we do it at Retail Resilient is we have a performance manager, and our performance manager speaks car talk. So a performance manager is either someone who is a GM or a GSM that went into stores and could have those conversations with a car dealer on, why the software is important. So like why your analytics are important, why you should use the tool, and then how to actually use the tool in terms of your strategy moving forward. So in this case with us, it's like, how do you use Instagram analytics or TikTok analytics to build and execute a strategy to social sell and make sales on social media? So we use, how we get dealers to do it, to answer your question, is through a performance manager that speaks car talk.
Okay, so someone who knows the industry, but more importantly can, for lack of a better term, dumb it down and make it understandable for someone who may be not as technically savvy as you might be, for example.
Exactly.
So they don't use the word algorithm.
I don't know about that, but yeah, they use the word algorithm. I mean, the Facebook algorithm is very interesting, but we explain it in terms of the car algorithm so that they can make those strategic decisions. But yes, we use the word algorithm a lot because
don't you use the term, that thingy that they do to figure things out?
The thingy in the back of the thingy with the Facebook thing that you need to figure out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Aaron, what do you think?
Awesome. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is to constantly be in your customer's presence, right? You go through a launch, you show them the software, they only learn so much during that week. You got to keep building and showing them what's there and what they're not using. Doing things like having workshops, seminars, conferences, much like Gail said, having somebody that's part of the industry that can be right in their face and show them what they need to use, why they need to use it. So it's just that constant engagement with your customers and partners that will keep them growing with the software.
Okay. Troy, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Gail and Aaron said it exactly right. Having people who know the car business working for the software company is critical, and having those people in the dealerships with a continuing to teach it is also critical. We know about the turnover when we have the HR shows. I mean, we hear about the massive turnover in our industry, and if you install today and you have someone going in monthly or even quarterly, well, invariably half the staff could be turned over in a 12-month to 24-month period. Well, imagine if that software is in place for 5 years. Well, now you have people on site teaching people through the workarounds they figured out with their shortcuts and stuff. And that gets carried on like a telephone game to the point where by the time that 5th generation's there, it's not great. So you need to have that continuing education. But, I don't know if you guys remember, I'm way older than some of you, but Excel 97 had an Easter egg buried in it, which was a flight simulator. And it's there. And so the thing about Microsoft Excel, some of us use it to add up columns, maybe make a graph, do some charts for financials, but that's a massive program. And some of these software sets that are created are so complex, but so amazing that people are only using a quarter of its potential. And I think that's really where the best, stickiest softwares are the ones where they show all of the potential and they maintain all of that. It's really huge.
Fantastic. Peter.
Well, I agree with Troy there because I've used his platforms for decades, and the getting people to understand that they're only using a small percentage of the software is key to expanding their use. With the second part that I'd like to add to that is we have to make it easy and less time consuming, because if we don't, they're just going to walk away from it. Inherently, a lot of people in this business are lazy. They want the low-hanging fruit. That's why they became in sales. That's why they go after the lease returns. They go after this. We have to get our software to be easy and efficient and get the information to them so they can magnify their returns.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Fair enough. Ryan?
Yeah, so we use a software called SEMrush. So what that does is for paid and organic traffic, keywords, we show auto dealers what they're doing in the market to get traffic to their website and what their competitors are doing in their projective area. Example, we have a lot of clients in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Sorry, that was a tongue twister. And we do have a lot of clients there, and we show, one of our clients is Chevrolet or Toyota, and we show them, this is what you're doing in the market. This is what your competitors are doing in the market. So that's how we gain, clients in the market space, and to show them that, listen, you cannot rely on the front door anymore. That's a thing of the past. You have to rely on social media and marketing to gain more traction to your website and your dealership in a whole.
Fantastic. Jeff? It's called SEMrush, you said?
SEMrush. SEMRUSH.com.
Okay.
Very interesting. It's quite funny because as Troy mentioned, some of us are a little bit older, been around a long time. And it's very funny because, we don't change and we don't do things. Like last week, for instance, our show was about leads. And one common question or comment about lead handling is only a small percentage of leads are followed up. So what's your experience on the extent of usage of the capability of your products? And I'm going to go right back to Ryan and just how many people actually use it properly?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So it's like holding a child's hand. You have to baby people, right? You have to constantly follow up with them. Like I was in sales for 5 years at Honda before getting into this role. And as they say, buy or die. Like I would follow up 10 times. And then finally the customer like, listen, I'm not buying right now. No problem. But that's how I put food on the table, right? So you have to constantly follow up with people, whether it's in sales or your profession, right? Because people are busy. We all have a lot going on. So you always have to be top of mind.
Okay. And something, actually, Gail mentioned this a few minutes ago about vAuto. I got onto vAuto, and Gail was my, I don't know, maybe performance manager at that time. And, I remember seeing her, if you don't know Gail, she's really tall. She's like 5'1". And I remember seeing her suddenly turn into a raging monster and just sort of saying, why aren't you guys using it? Because all we did with vAuto, literally, was use it to compare everybody else's prices. So Gail, I mean, you've got an experience in getting people to use it. We never really did it because vAuto was so much deeper. But again, how much do you find people are using these products? And yours, I know, is
I would say when I was at vAuto, when we first started in the US and Canadian markets, they were probably using 10%. And vAuto did a fantastic job of building a performance management team, and I was part of it. There were 100 of us that went and helped auto dealers throughout the US and Canada. And Jeff's a great example because I would call him every month and I'm like, but what about this? What about this? And I had to get to know Jeff. I was like, okay, so tell me when you appraise a car, what your process is. And he would walk me through his process. And then I would say, okay, you do 10 different steps. What if I could take those 10 steps and make them easy in their software tool and do them in 2 steps? And he's like, what do you mean? So like I had to earn Jeff's trust. I had to earn his respect. I had to constantly, persistently like dig into his role at the dealership. And we kind of do the same thing now with social media. So when my team calls a car dealer, I'm like, guys, you need to ask them, how do you advertise on Facebook? What are you doing in Marketplace? What are you doing with Ads Manager? What are you doing with your marketing team? And we find out where all the holes in their processes are. And we kind of weasel our way in, I would say, until they become dependent on us to help them use more than 10% of the software. And they always find it fascinating, like when they're like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And we're like, well, we have more, right? So I don't know, Jeff, I will say I did have to earn your respect and your trust first before you were even willing to listen to like what else vAuto could do for you.
Yeah.
So
no,
yeah.
You're very right. And it's funny because I like to think of myself as somebody who's fairly open to these things. And I was very skeptical at the beginning, and then I bought into it. But of course, the biggest challenge was to get everybody else to buy into it. And I think what ended up failing for us was when the group I was in, the executive ranks changed, and the person that was in charge of operations for the group said, I don't like that crap. And it was gone. Yeah. But Peter, your opinion on this and how you getting people to actually get involved in things?
Well, with our particular software, there is no data input. It's using beacon technology. So we collect data instantaneously and it can't be manipulated. So it's quite unique in this platform area. So we can tell a dealer immediately where their bottlenecks are, where their efficiencies are, and how to save and make money. That goes along with what I said, ease of operation and engagement to the platform. So with mobile dealer data, we have dealers like Longo Toyota in the States, and anybody in the car business knows Longo Toyota being the largest dealership in North America. They've been using our platform for 7 years, and they've actually utilized the system because it is 100% engaged at all times. They've actually reduced their RO times by 5 minutes and their sales conversion times by 20 minutes. So when you go back to the sense, time is money. and we've improved it and we've saved it for everyone. So we don't have engagement problems.
Very interesting. And I do have to say that we could be not very far away from the fact that almost all programs will be basically AI, and they'll just basically, they'll pick up on how we do it, probably from a chip embedded in us or something. But so Troy, you and Aaron are both from a different side of this. And in many cases, dealers have no choice but to use your product. However, you know, you also have partners that tie in, and what's your experience too on actually getting people to use this more than 10%?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And actually, I'll go so far as to say Aaron and I aren't in different sides of this. We're in exactly the same side, and we're side by side. So the reality is dealers need a DMS system to manage, but in the past, the DMS used to be thought of as this giant box that all your software went into, right? So whether it was a third-party vAuto or your website or your CRM or your walk-around tool like DealerFX, well, that all just piled into this box, but the CRM or the DMS really ran the show. The future, I think, is going to be that the DMS is this little tiny box that everything else plugs onto. So the DMS is diminishing in its importance, and it's the third parties that are really up, the dealers use every day. The DMS is going to be the engine in the background nobody thinks about. Nobody thinks about, you know, the engine when they're looking at their nav screen or their infotainment center, or they're driving their car with their heated seats. They don't think about it, and that's where it's got to go. But going back to the utilization piece, we always knew, but we needed to create some analytics. So in our organization, we created a report for our customers that has some key workflows, and then a red, yellow, green for utilization. And we can ping in and see how many times this application is being accessed, or is it being done right? And anywhere where there's a red, that's when we'd send in our Gail performance manager to say, hey, you're missing out on this opportunity to generate revenue because you're not doing this workflow. We need to add it back in. So really, we all know our software is not being used to its fullest extent, and we all need to try. The first thing we needed to do is actually get those metrics, because you can't fix what you can't measure, right? So we got those, and we're starting to work on it, and we're seeing those numbers go up. So,
well, it's actually, I think my as I said, my audio is a little bit weak today for some reason, but I think you said to get the veterans on there, and maybe sometimes I think one of the problems some of the companies have is they get the dealer principal on board, they get the general manager on board, they might get the sales manager or service manager, whatever it is, depending on the product, on board. And then the troops, they're off because the boss says they got to do it, which means they got to do it. So
Jeff,
that's a bit of...
Before you go off that, that's really important, and it affects all of us here on the call, is the dealer buys in because they are told they're going to get, if they buy this, it'll fix this problem, or if they buy this, they'll get this ROI, which is 10 times worse. Anytime a software person calls you and says they promise you ROI, they are lying to you. The reality is they might solve a problem or help you solve a problem, but it goes beyond the buy-in. The dealer needs to be bought in all the time. And a lot of times the dealer buys the software, gets it installed, tells everyone this is the way it's going to go. And to your point, maybe doesn't get the buy-in of the troops, but nonetheless, then 6 months later, when the troops are unhappy, they're like, the software is broken, get rid of it. And it's really, it needs to be a continuous culture of improvement and training and learning. It's got to start from the top and involve everybody.
Yeah. And, you know, actually, maybe to counter that too, is once the dealer buys in, it should come from the bottom up. You know, it's funny, when I call an Aaron here, I was at a dealership that actually changed over from Reynolds to PBS. And they had Dealer Socket, and they had absolutely no trust in their salespeople whatsoever. So they had no access. So what they did was they printed off their to-do sheets, and the salespeople wrote on their to-do sheets when they did follow-up calls. And it worked really, really, really well because the dealer was probably one of the lowest performing dealers in their market. And however, which isn't the point, because the salespeople just had no idea what it would do, and they had somebody else do it. So there was no buy-in, but they forced them. But I have to say that switching from the old Reynolds for the Reynolds and Reynolds people who listen, I'm saying the old one, to PBS was a big challenge because the capability of the product was vastly superior. So again, what does your do? What's your experience on getting people to use it?
So I think the biggest thing with us is the experience and making it fun, making it easy, putting every bit of information you need right at your fingertips. So kind of one of the things that we have done is we've built an all-encompassing platform. Previously in DMS, you'd have your DMS and then you'd have your CRM, you'd have any third parties you can add on. We've inherently just built that into our platform with a single database. So you know right off the bat, if a lead comes in, what they're interested in, the service department can actually pull up that information and be able to see it in real time. I found that from our older platform to our newer platform, we have a ton more people using the software because of how easy it is and seeing that guest experience across the board and having that information in real time. Inherently, we also put some data analytics with inside our software. So our software is constantly, basically what it does is it reads every single report for you at every single time and kind of gives you those thresholds so you can see what you need to look at. So for us, I think that's the biggest thing that gets kind of people more excited and more interested is being able to see what they need right here, right now, in real time with no delays.
I have to just quickly interrupt, but some comments just came out in the chat, and it's very interesting because John Latka said, do you think that part of the problem is that some managers use data as a whipping tool? And then, of course, Gail always jumps into something like that and says, what do you mean by a whipping tool? And the way I take it is they use software as a way of beating the crap out of the salespeople, and then the salespeople check out. And
that's about it.
That's about it. And you know, it's funny, one of my favorite points is the fact that everything is great, but if the staff don't use it, how good is it?
And I like Peter's comment. He just put more leaders are needed, and I agree with him. I 100% agree with that statement.
You know, it's funny though. Some dealers will spend, you know, they'll spend $5,000 a month on a software set, but then they don't trust any of their staff to use the data that comes out of it. Like you can go on an OEM website and price and configure a car. You can get an APR, you can get a payment estimated, you can trim it out, you can even probably add on some sample F&I products, but they don't let the salespeople in the store give any prices because that's not what we do. We don't trust anybody. And my best learnings have come from my team when they tell me, hey, did you know that in Salesforce we can do this? Or did you know that in our other systems we can do this? And I learned something new by letting my people have full access to everything. I mean, there's no such thing as you know, there are fences in all of these systems that let people do as much as they can without getting into trouble. And as long as the people who are managing it trust the process, there's going to be a lot of great output, and the leaders will emerge from the places you probably least expected it.
100%.
Good points, everybody. Thank you. Ian.
I think Ryan didn't have a chance to speak at all. You overlooked him. Go ahead, Ryan.
So to add on to that, so because I was on the floor for 5 years, I went through those experiences. The last year of being on the floor, we finally got the leash, you know, taken off of us where we could actually give a discount to the customer, put the F&I products into the bill of sale. And that was a great thing finally for them to do, to give us trust, because let's face it, we're grown men and women in the car industry trying to make a living. And also, let's face it, it's all about the customer experience. So if we're constantly going back to our manager, you know, saying, oh, give me a second, I'll be back. The customer is looking at you like, do you have credibility? Like, I feel like I have to deal with the manager and not you. So, you know, it creates, you know, less, you know, they say the average time of a customer being from walking the dealership to going into the F&I department and then leaving with their bill of sale is about 3 hours. You know, tired of customers at 3 hours? I don't want to be a dealership for 3 hours. Why do you think they're doing a lot of car deliveries at people's houses or place of business? Because people don't even want to walk in a dealership anymore. I told my wife, I said, in 6 months when my lease is up, I'm going to sit with a glass of wine and I'm going to order the car from my couch and I'm gonna get the car delivered to me right at our door. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to come into the dealership.
Trouble
Because
is, you're going to buy everything after that wine. You're going to buy everything at F&I and more.
You have lots of wine during the process. I agree with that 100%, and it's actually kind of interesting because the next question I had was, in the old days, dealers had storerooms full of training tapes, VHS tapes, audio tapes, and of course, you know, great salespeople pestered people to get more tapes and more things. I've even heard of dealers having old VHS tapes from the 80s remastered for DVD or for streaming platforms. But today, it's a virtual showroom full of software sitting, gathering virtual dust. There's so much stuff out there today from a training perspective that, you know, salespeople get access to. You know, is there something that dealers can do to change this in terms of, you know, really getting their team engaged and using this different training out there versus, you know, the old stuff? What do you think? Let's start with Gail.
Oh, I'm glad you asked me because we're launching our mobile app in 2022, and we actually took social selling and we created like beginner, intermediate, advanced, and master classes so that someone could take their phone, literally, they'll find us on social, obviously, because we market to them. They hit a button and boom, they download the entire training program for social media in their phone, and they have access to 350 lessons. And I did this because I know that there's not really any vendors, and there's not really anybody that's making the consumer experience fun and easy. And it kind of goes back to what Aaron said when you were like, oh, how do you get people to use PBS software? Well, it's about the consumer experience. So that's why we took everything that was kind of like old school in the car business and we put it all into a mobile app. And I'm really excited because we're launching it next year. So yeah, consumer experience and like technology of 2022 makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
I've been studying car dealerships of various types for years. I worked retail myself for a long time. Today, I would say that it's, you know, customer experience is key, especially as we do new entrants like Lucid. They just opened a store here in Vancouver. Rivian, I know, has an office here. Obviously, the Tesla stores and others. How do you see that, you know, impacting experience? I mean, let's go with Aaron on that.
Oh man, that's a big one. So again, it's just keeping engaged, staying up to date with the technology and making it easy to access. So like Gail said, she's got an app now that people can go and do this on. They should be able to see it from anywhere, whether it's web portals, whether it's applications at any given time. And also just really engaging the customers themselves, right? If you take them and have them as part of our learning platform, then they're more involved in it and they're wanting to see it. One of the things that we do really well at PBS is we actually host a dealer conference every single year. We have our customers come and sit with our developers, with our support analysts, make decisions on what we're going to change in the software or what we're going to teach them or how does our education portal work, and allow them the ability to kind of tell us how they want to learn. And it really just helps them engage a lot more. So I think that's a big thing, is mobility, easy access, and making it fun for them.
Thanks, Aaron. And Troy, I mean, obviously time is something I hear over and over and over again from consumers saying it takes too damn long to buy a vehicle. Obviously software helps there. What are you seeing as a trend there as we combine training and software? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, if we're looking at the this is sort of future looking, but a lot like Peter's company, AI is playing a huge role. And what we're going to find in software, I think it's not just DMS, and it's going to be every software, is just like how we used to text on our phone, then it became T9, and then it became predictive text. And the predictive text is learning from the words we use in order, and it knows us. Well, I think our software, I know our software because we bought an AI company that's doing this for us, is we are going to take, let's say, posting something in accounting. And I'm assuming my customers are the people that use our product in the dealership. So if I'm an accounting clerk and I need to post the 7 entries that come out of a car deal, Well, I could manually post all those, or what's going to happen is it's going to, remember Clippy from Office back in the day? It's going to say, hey, it looks like you're trying to post a car deal. Next thing you know, it pre-populates everything. And then it's going to know that after I do this, I usually go to this line to make sure that that GL account, and then I go to the financial statement to verify it. Well, over time, you do that a number of times, it's going to start to automate those processes to the point where it's like, I'm going to post a car deal. Next thing you know, it's imported the car deal, it's posted, done everything to the financial statement that's there. So that task gets automated. And yeah, doing the task it's important for it to be easy to get people to buy in. But what if he didn't have to do it at all? Because it's already done. And Elon, when he was doing one of his interviews, I think recently on Joe Rogan, he was saying that the reason why he didn't put a gear shift in the plaids is because they know what you're doing. They know that if you pull into a parking space, the next thing you're going to do is get out of that parking space. Well, anytime you have human intervention into anything, there's propensity for error. And the more of that gets removed, the better. So much like Peter has been saying the whole time is, what if you didn't have to do anything? And it just gave you the data and it gave you a great end consumer experience to the people trying to buy a car. That car process for buying the car is going to speed up. It's going to say, hey, you're trying to do this. Okay, well, here's the bill of sale. It's already pre-populated. This person's buying a minivan. Here's like 4 or 5 F&I products that everyone who buys a minivan needs because they've got kids, they got the fabric protector, all that stuff. We're going to start to see a lot of predictive things happen. And that's going to make the learning curve way flatter. And it's going to make the time to onboard new staff way better. And it's going to make the transition from system to system 10 times easier. And it's not just us, it's every software is going to be doing this in time.
Yeah, when I was at Digital Dealer in Vegas last month, there was a number of AI companies there. And I think the holy grail is the conversational AI, which seems to be where everyone's going, including Google. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes for after-hours discussions with car dealers. Go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry?
Question: what do you think about training and technology and do you think that the training side of the business is going to be different as we move from, say, the videotape era to the digital era? What's your thought?
Most definitely. People have to buy in, right? Whether people like it or not, social media is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. In regards to that, if you're not on it, as time goes on, you'll be left behind. So in regards to training, selling from those platforms, these businesses have to buy in because, no offense to anybody else, but the Stone Age days, those days are gone.
So I have a question there, and then Ryan, I'll hit you with this. You've got training, you've got buy-in, but one continuous repeating comment is the turnover in the business. So what is the point in having all this versus AI when you've got still such a high turnover and frankly, in many cases that day, even dealer principals are turning over quickly. So what's your opinion there?
I think a problem with that, no disrespect or anything, but that's leadership, right? It comes from the top to the bottom, right? Lead by example. You can show a motivational video on a Saturday to all your employees, but what is that motivational video really doing if you're not leading by example on the floor, right?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. So one of my favorite things I'm starting to do, having fun a little bit in the show, is I do quiz time.
Jeff, we didn't ask Peter his opinion.
I'm cutting everybody out today. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. Basically, again, for buy-in, you have to get results. If you don't get results, you'll never get buy-in. End of story. With our system and using AI, and we really don't use AI in our system, but it's because there is no data. The data capture is automatic. It goes through our proprietary software to allow for the dashboards to give you the information, and from the information you can alter your processes. So that's where we have the engagement. But again, it comes back down to leadership, and the leadership of the dealership from the top down or even from the bottom up is it's of the utmost importance, because if you don't have that, you'll never ever get buy-in, and you take it as a number of us here have been in the industry for a few decades. We started out before computers, and when I deal with someone that's 20 something in a dealership, they know 100 times more about automations and data sets and everything else than I'll ever know, because it was their math and their English in school, where ours was different. So getting their buy-in, and that's where the bottom up comes up, and then from the top down is understanding, teaching the old dogs new tricks, that this is the forefront of where this marketplace is going. But when just one quick thing, when you were talking about books at the beginning, there's a great book out there, Extreme Leadership, from Dr. Wilnick, and it dictates that everyone takes accountability from the bottom to the top and the top to the bottom. So that's important. So the buy-in.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I used to use a video. I think it's Admiral McMullen. I'm not sure, but it was, if you want to succeed, you start by making your bed every day.
Yeah, great one.
Oh.
Great one.
And it's phenomenal, and it's that simple. But before we hit quiz time, I do have to make a comment, because you mentioned the 20-year-olds. Yet today, you have a 20-year-old comes into a dealership. Their whole life revolves around Instagram and TikTok and things that I haven't heard of, and I got a 20-something-year-old daughter, and yet they still fall into that same old rut, which is waiting for an up, waiting for a lead, and they turn into car salespeople. And leadership is definitely a factor, but we're going to have to combat that. And I'm actually going to ask Troy this for the quiz time first, which is, do we purge the storeroom, or do we build off it?
Well, my opinion is this: your software partners, and I would say the DMS, largely because we're the biggest check people stroke all the time, is if you sat down with us and give us transparency and here are our goals for our dealership, here is what we're trying to accomplish, here's where we need to grow. Your DMS provider can say, here's what we can do to help you get there. Here's where we align with our third parties and that if you need them, and here's where we don't. And if we don't, here's who we suggest that does do a good job. And any partner, any software provider that gets to the level of a partner that you trust, the more information you give them, the more information they can help you answer. A lot of dealers keep it all close to the chest. They don't want to tell anybody anything. And then we provide what we think is the right solution, and sometimes it's not. It really is a trust and a two-way street. And do you need to purge? Maybe, maybe not. But what you really need to do is make sure your strategies align with your vendors and your software providers. In fact, if they're vendors, they're not your partners. They should be partners. And if you're best partner and you align strategically, then you will figure out the best path together.
I actually will say, and then forgive me because you're part of this, your company is, but with the amalgamation in the industry, CDK, Cox, Reynolds, I'm almost fearing that the third-party providers are just going to be divisions of somebody.
I'll stop you right there. One thing that a lot of these groups are realizing is the third-party providers, the disruptors to the industry, they're out and they're coming with a ton of velocity. Ian was just a digital dealer. NADA is now more than 60% technology vendors when you go to the trade show. The disruptors that we're going to be using 2 years from now, we don't know about them yet. And OEMs will have mandates where they want to get enterprise-wide data, sometimes for Canada, sometimes for North America, sometimes for global, and they're going to make some decisions. So the DMS providers that are sitting here trying to buy up all these little divisions and stuff like that, we need to stick in our lane and do what we do best and be best in class at that. And then the stuff that's outside, like Gail's company or Peter's company or Ryan's company, let them do what they do and just make it easy to integrate to us.
Yeah.
We're not buying everybody. I promise you that. Our shareholders wouldn't allow it.
OEMs were definitely present looking at technology. I mean, there was definitely representation from every OEM at the show. And granted, Digital Dealer is not NADA. I mean, there's 13 to 1,500 guests, essentially, most of them dealers. But there was a lot of focus on technology and a lot of focus from the OEM on, you know, getting an understanding of what's changing, because they really want to have an understanding there of, you know, what's next. That's what they're looking for.
Great. So now we're going to go for a quiz, and Aaron's been sitting there waiting to be hit with something. Be honest, please. What's more important, website or CRM?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I think really both of them are super important, but we need it to go hand in hand with each other. Your CRM should talk to your website. Website should talk to the CRM. So for me, I can't pick one or the other, guys. I need them together, combined with that data, so that we can see it right away and give that enterprise level guest experience.
Okay. Peter, so you mentioned this a little bit a minute ago. Who should assure staff compliance?
That's a great question. And a tough one. I believe the direct report is the most important to ensuring staff compliance. And it's got to be a trickle down series. The dealer principal has to have the buy-in of the GM. The GM has to have the buy-in of the IT managers and the department heads. And the department heads have to have the buy-in of their reportees. You have to have 100% buy-in. Otherwise, you're never going to get success.
Perfect. Thank you. And as I mentioned earlier with Gail, getting buy-in down below is always the hardest part. Yes. So Ryan, who should manage the internal software?
Question. Either an internet coordinator or a manager that obviously can trust with the department to kind of run the day-to-day operations. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Obviously, you can't ask the general manager to do it because he's so busy with, you know, so many things on a day-to-day.
Or she.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. I had to be politically correct. I apologize.
Yeah, you know, I have to do that because I would get in big trouble. So,
okay, so
my favorite quiz question. My favorite quiz question. If there was one thing that you would recommend dealers do with their software, Gail, not just because you're my favorite, what would that one thing dealers should do with their software?
Their software. It's like learn how to use it. The one thing I think the one thing dealers should do is, honestly, they really should, I sound like a broken record, they should call their performance manager. Like CDK has one, PBS has one, Viato has one, Facebook has one. Like every single company has an account manager, and that account manager knows how to use the software. So pick up the phone and call them and tell them you want to see more of what the tool can do. Like that is like the one thing, it drives me crazy. Like I have dealers that ask me how to use VIN solutions all the time. So I'm like, guys, why don't you just call VIN solutions and ask them? No, they ask us. So we help them and we walk them through it. But like, really, you need to call that provider. Just pick up the phone. They want to help you. Like they literally want to help you.
I do have to tell you though, firsthand, a lot of the times I would call somebody because they were accessible. A lot of the reps from these companies, and especially in the last couple of years, they've thinned out the ranks, and actually getting somebody to call you back is like, you know, the proverbial pulling teeth. And so then they go to somebody who's actually engaged to say how to do it. And I mean, it's scary because VIN Solutions is not a competitor to you in any way, shape, or form, but it's not your job to handle their algorithms.
Right.
That's my favorite room.
It's a really interesting question. It's like, that's why you say like, use it. Like if you pay for it, use it. But
yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to the comment earlier of the storerooms. How many dealers did you see with storerooms full of like old Joe Verdi, Grant Cardone tapes. There's an F&I trainer up here named Harvey Cohen. And when Harvey was on his own, he had these tapes, and I saw him not long ago, probably a month ago, in a dealer's storeroom, and literally you couldn't blow the dust off it. You couldn't wipe it off. You had to wash it off.
Yeah. That's how I'm coming after Grant Cardone. I'm going to make I'm just kidding. I'm not. But our sales training, like I see the Joe Verdis and the Grant Cardones, and I'm like, guys, we're retail resilient and we could put it on a mobile app and it's pretty freaking good, right? So let's just do it and sell it.
Yeah. Well, it is, and I think all this stuff is evolving. We're actually working on having a training show again, because that stuff really is just evolving so quickly. But I think somebody made a comment the other day that we think Grant's gotten out of training and he's more into promotion and TV shows and real estate or whatever.
Real estate.
Yeah. And by the way, John Latka is got a glider with a 1X on the back.
Nice.
Ian.
Final question. What's the biggest software thing today? Let's start with Troy, in your opinion.
I think right now it's fixed ops a lot. And the reason why is because, as we discussed on multiple previous shows, the inventory shortage is causing a lot of dealers to look inward, and they need to make sure they're capturing that fixed ops business, customer pay ROs, maximizing the time in the dealership with the customer to get all the work that they can get out of that, because really the revenue and the profits coming from fixed ops until this inventory thing gets sorted out.
Aaron, what do you think?
I think the biggest software thing today is really data analytics, and basically having your software kind of run every report for you every second of the day so that you can see what's going on. It's alerting you when that customer comes into the showroom. It's alerting you when they're ready to purchase, or even on the service side as well. Really letting you be able to see your employees as well. Like, who do you praise? Who needs a little bit of extra coaching? So it's really setting those system thresholds for what you want to monitor in the software and have it do it for you.
Gail?
I like Troy and Aaron's answers, and I kind of highly agree with them. I think that software, like everything can be found in here in your phone, and it should be used. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of agree with what they both said.
Ryan? Thanks, Gail. Ryan?
I'm going to say I have to agree with Troy in regards to fix ops. I have a friend out in the US. You may have met him at Digital Dealer, Russell B. Hill. He owns Fix Ops Marketing.
Yeah.
And I love what he's doing in the US. He's obviously bringing it to Canada in regards to the marketing strategies for the service department. In regards to service, that generates a lot of revenue for a dealership's business, right? So that in turn, helps you with your sales department and helps create sales, especially in this time if you have to, try to generate some leads.
Oh, thanks. Peter?
Well, I agree with pretty much everything that everyone has said. The one thing that I'll say is visibility. Visibility is the biggest thing in software today. The dashboards, the KPIs, and engagement is allowing us to maximize our potentials. Fixed ops is absolutely the key factor in the car business today with the lack of chips. We're losing 70% of our opportunities in the fixed ops side of a dealership. And with software today, we can reclaim that and bring it back to profitability.
Thanks for that. Jeff, final thoughts?
Oh, a great show again, as always. There's so many things. We can't cover this in an hour, so hopefully we can provide a little bit of insight for everybody. And the big thing that comes across from everybody here is you got software, just use it and get a buy-in. And I appreciate everybody joining us. It's a very lively conversation, as always, a good group of people that connected together. And we're proud being the Auto Hub show because we actually connect a lot of people. So we should have a matchmaker show, shouldn't we, Ian?
Yeah, you totally should.
I think we should have speed dating.
Speed dating. Yeah. The other thing that I would say, and this is something that I think we've said before, is lean on your vendor. I mean, if your vendor is not providing the support for the software they sold you, I mean, you got to kind of question that. I mean, my view is, you know, the car business is a 24/7, 365 business. The vendor wants to help you. They know the software better than a third party, probably, since it's their software. Don't be afraid to do that. I mean, it amazes me that dealers don't do that more often. You know, that vendor's there.
Ian, one of the things that has come across this whole podcast is relationships. The car business has been a relationship business from day one, whether it's the dealer and the customer, or the dealer and the vendor, or the dealer and the manufacturer. It's a relationship. Expand on that relationship.
Well, that's one thing we can't do with AI, can we?
No.
We can't build that relationship. And we all know that, trying to call, you know, some big consumer companies, and you get the hi, I'm your digital assistant. I don't understand. I don't understand. I'm still learning.
Representative.
And we've had sometimes challenges too, as we get guests on the show, where it's the handler you're speaking to. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that person talking to that other person. And I think that in a lot of cases, the technology has become sometimes an impediment to talking to that company. And I think that's, you know, not something you want to have happen as a company. You want to be sure that you have a person that can talk to that person, right? That has a question, whether it be chat or email or phone, whatever they prefer. Obviously, young people prefer other forms of communication, but you know, that doesn't mean that you can't respond to that person. So, and that's it for me. Thanks very much for everybody. Have yourself a great week.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Everybody.
Thank you,
Bye,
Jeff.
everyone.
Here, guys.
Bye.